he was just looking at me, but not crying and not breathing. And I wasn't really worried, but I was thinking, okay, I've heard about this and blowing in their face can help. So I started like blowing a little bit and talking to him and just brushing his cheek with my hand. And then within the minute that you get, he did this little wail, but it was like tiny. And then he breathed, then he closed his eyes and just snuggled into my chest.
Getting pregnant and giving birth are two of the most exciting things you can ever hope to experience in this life. The moment you think you could be pregnant, you're frantically searching for all the best information, which is why you're here today. I'm Stephanie King, and with my many years of experience as a professional childbirth educator, doula, and lover of all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, I'm here to make preparing for your birth enjoyable, empowering, and totally easy. Each week, I'll cover different topics, interview professionals, and get into the nitty-gritty birth stories from mamas just like you. And when you're ready for more, you can join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I take you step by step through exactly how to prepare your mind, body, spirit, and partner for a birth you love. So let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast this week, you guys. It is time for another birth story. And I have with me here Godelieve. She is a My Essential Birth mama, and she's going to share with us some incredible information all about how she prepared for and had a wonderful birth. But before we do that, will you take a moment, say hello to everybody, and tell me a little bit about you?
Sure. So my name is Godelieve. I'm from the Netherlands, so you can hear that I'm not a native speaker. I'm a mom of two. I have a daughter who's 4 years old, and my son, the one we'll be talking about mostly today, he's 10 months old now. And me and my husband live in the south of the Netherlands. And I'm a teacher by trade and researcher doing my PhD.
Oh, I love it. What are you researching?
In the field of history of emotions, and I'm researching moments of crisis in the Netherlands in the 20th century, and I'm looking at how emotions and the way people show their emotions, how that influences societal and political relationships.
Wow, that is deep. That's really, really neat. I love that you're doing that. And how crazy is that, doing all of that while you are raising children?
Yeah, it's a lot. Oftentimes, it's quite a challenge. I actually submitted my proposal for the research, and then once I submitted it, I found out I was pregnant. So it was really and that was with my first. So I'm let's see. I've passed the halfway point now and added a second baby. So apparently I thought it was still possible to do that.
Well, I think that's amazing. And I wish you all the very best with that. That's really neat. Okay, let's dive into your pregnancy though. Tell me a little bit about the pregnancy, this last baby. What was that like for you? Kind of walk me through how you felt, anything that you went through, all of that stuff.
So my pregnancy was pretty easy. I had a little bit of morning sickness at the beginning, and it wasn't really morning sickness. With my daughter it was. So if I could just eat enough throughout the day, I was fine with her. But with him, I wasn't sick at all one day, and then the next day it would just hit me like a ton of bricks, like from one moment to the next. And with teaching, I was always scared that it would happen in front of the class, but it never happened, luckily. So that was a bit tough in the beginning, and I was pretty tired. So I was happy when the second trimester began, but then my Braxton Hicks already started quite intensely. I had them with my eldest as well, from I think like 20 weeks onwards, so quite early and a lot for a first one. So I was expecting them, but with him it was really quite intense and often. So at 29 weeks, I actually called the midwife because I had about 10 contractions in an hour, and we were afraid that he was coming early. But in the end, luckily they subsided again. So that was throughout the pregnancy. I would have contractions about maybe every hour. Yeah.
Wow. From 29 weeks?
Yeah. So no, earlier even. So at 29 weeks, it was really like the whole evening through. And I think that every hour was already, the first Braxton Hicks started at like 15 weeks, very early, but my tummy grew very rapidly as well. So I wasn't, that surprised, but that was a bit tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with a toddler running around.
Yeah, no kidding. How about your provider? So did you have the same provider with both children? And what kind of
No.
provider did you choose and why?
Yeah, so with my eldest, we had a provider that was really close to our apartment, but we moved houses during that pregnancy, and then it was close to my work, but not really to our home. So with the second pregnancy, and also because I was satisfied with their care during the pregnancy, but at the labor, I was pretty disappointed in them, and especially afterwards because it was a bit traumatic for me, and they really didn't seem to care that much. So for the second pregnancy, I sought a new midwifery clinic because I wanted a home birth again, and this one was highly acclaimed, and that they would also be like good for physiological birth. But with the first, I had a retained placenta. And I had a transfer to the hospital because of conium in the waters. And then at home, everything was fine. But in the hospital, the contractions stalled. And I had Pitocin, a lot of it in the end, and then managed to push her out. But really, I told them the only things I don't want is to push lying on my back and to be coached when pushing. And both things happened in the end. And she got kind of stuck, like when crowning, she was crowning for more than 20 minutes. Yeah, so my take on it was that with all the hassle at the hospital, that was why my placenta didn't come, because I didn't have any contractions anymore after she was born. I couldn't feel any. So I wanted to do a home birth, even though I knew there was a risk of having a retained placenta again. And the midwife, I had a male midwife at that appointment, which I thought was really cool when I walked in. But then in the end, he was telling me like, oh, the form says you want a home birth, but with your history, I'm guessing that's a mistake, right? Ha ha ha. And I felt so invalidated. So we stuck with them for a few more weeks, but then we moved again during pregnancy, quite unexpectedly. And I saw that as an opportunity to find someone who matched my preferences. And we found there are 3 midwives together, and they really support physiological birth. And they had concerns as well, but they really wanted to try it with me and really supported me in the effort. The only thing we did was really make a plan for, how long do you want to try to get the placenta out before we go to the hospital? And we had like this whole step-by-step plan so that both of us were okay with this home birthing trial, because it really felt like that a bit.
Yeah. No, that's neat. I like that you guys worked together on that and they were asking you questions. What are you comfortable with and what they're comfortable with? I think that's exactly how healthcare should go. It actually makes me curious about the Netherlands in general. Maybe you can tell everybody what's the norm there. Like here, everybody typically goes to an OB unless you hear about a midwife, and then we have in-hospital midwives and out-of-hospital midwives, but we can go to any of them. Is that how is it the same? How is it different there?
So you have more or less the same options, but we have quite a strong history of home birthing in the Netherlands, and it's been more medicalized like the past decades. But it used to be like 30% of women home birthed, and it was really seen as totally normal. So we have a lot of midwives. The option of home birthing is still seen as really valid, but increasingly you hear people saying like, not for your first one, or not if there's any hint of maybe something being the matter. So that's starting here as well. And I think by now the numbers are like only 10% home birth. So it's going down quite a lot. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm glad for now, though, that you do have, it sounds like you have a decent amount of options because there are a decent amount of midwives. So that's good.
Everybody's supported by midwives unless you choose a doctor or it's medically necessary. So the default is a midwife. That's something, I quite like actually, because that makes it a little bit less like it's a disease being pregnant.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I'm like, it's treated like it's not an emergency. It's funny, when we were in Germany, that was the same. The default is midwives, but because we were American, we were required to meet with an OB all throughout our pregnancy. until birthing time. But for the German women there, you get a midwife unless there's an emergency or you need an OB. And I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, because it's not an
Yeah,
emergency.
yeah.
It's very normal.
No, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh. Okay, how about your birth partner? Tell me about him and about maybe how he supported you. I would love to hear if there's like any challenges that you worked through together, either that first or second pregnancy, just so other moms can hear. And then maybe what was the most helpful thing for the both of you?
Okay. So the first time I was really diving deep, reading all the things, listening to all the podcasts, but yeah, him not so much. So he just said, "Oh, everything that I need to hear, you'll tell me anyway," which was true. But in the end, like during the birth, it meant that he wasn't really prepared the same way that I was. And he said it wasn't traumatic for him, even when it was for me in the end, because he just really trusted the midwife and the hospital staff later and said, like, I just thought they'll know best and it'll be fine. But for me, because it was such a lack of autonomy in the end, it felt really different. So it was surprising for me when we finally talked about it, that for him, it wasn't really that traumatic at all, even though I was in a lot of pain in the end and wheeled out of the room. And he was, sitting there with our newborn on his chest while I was going to surgery to remove the placenta. But he was okay with how it went, which is good, because why would we both need to be traumatized by it? But it did mean that I told him when we were pregnant again, I told him I'm going to like require you to know more this time, because I really want to do it at home and I need to know that you're feeling confident and know what to do and what I need, so that I don't have to think about you at all. And he was okay, but that's how we from the Netherlands joined your birth course, because doing it online and doing it together was a way that he was actually prepared to do it and feeling okay with it. Yeah.
So what were his thoughts with it? I'm so curious because, you know, the guys when they first get started are like, fine, I'll sit next to you and listen to the thing. You know, we hope that they get a little
he had that
more
as
excited.
well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did tell him you bookmarked, like, this is good for the partner to at least watch. And that's what he watched. He didn't watch anything extra, but I did. We watched the stages of birth, especially like transition. We watched that together because it went really fast the first time. So the first time I had my first contraction at like 3:30, I think, in the afternoon. And we called the midwife at 9:30 in the evening, something like that. And it was not our own midwife, but like a cover, because they were all busy. And she didn't really believe me when I told her, like he told her, because I couldn't speak. He told her, like, she says you need to come. It's been every 3 minutes for this hour, and she's really, working hard. And I could actually feel my body expanding. So like I had one contraction that I just felt like centimeters adding to the, So I told them that they needed to come, and she said something like, "Oh, my shift is almost ending. I'll be there, but I'll just check on you and then leave again. And then in a few hours, the next one will come." And she came in and examined me, and I was at 9 centimeters. So for her first birth within a few hours. And then it was, she wanted to break my waters. She said that might be that last 1 centimeter, but then the waters were green and we had to go to the hospital while I was already getting the urge to push. So that was all so fast. And then in the hospital, it took a long time because of the contractions subsiding, that I told my husband, like, this time I might be like my mom and just push this baby out in a few hours. And then I need you to know what you need to do and how you can recognize where I am. So he took that really seriously, and he was there for me that way. And we made a plan, but it didn't really go according to plan, of course.
Of course. Okay, well, how about, so he watched some of the videos, the stuff that you bookmarked for him and whatever, and he was good about that, which is awesome. How about like any other preparation that you guys did together, like relaxation practice or meditations, any discussions that you had? You kind of mentioned that one, but was there anything else that you guys had talked about, or how he was going to have to advocate for you? And then kind of into your own personal, like what exercises were you doing and all of that, your nitty gritty daily stuff?
Yeah, I did most by myself, but the stuff that we did together was mainly thinking through the birth plan and talking with the midwife and just making sure that he was okay with all of those steps as well, that we both were very sure in our decision to home birth. And what he did was take our daughter out so that I could do my relaxation exercises. So he kind of, took care of me that way instead of doing them together, because she doesn't sleep that well. So we didn't have a lot of downtime in the evenings together. And my preparation, I did the inversion daily, and the squatting I tried, but we have in our family, we have like tight, I don't know what it's called. Well, I can't do it really well. So I did try and I could hold it for a few minutes, but I couldn't get really low. So in the end, it was so uncomfortable. I had like an enormous belly. I was really, really big. I just couldn't do them anymore. So in the end, I didn't do those, but I did the hip tilts and the inversions right up till like the day before. I did a meditation each evening before going to sleep. I listened to a guided meditation in bed, like a body awareness type, a little bit of yoga. I had quite a lot of pain, pelvic pain at one point, and advice of the physiotherapist was to take a brisk walk for as far as that was possible for like 15 to 20 minutes, which I did, but then I would get Braxton Hicks like immediately. So it was, I had to kind of see, okay, my pelvic pain needs this and the Braxton Hicks do that. What did I do? When I listened to, I made a playlist. I made one for the early labor. I was pretty sure that I wouldn't get it, early labor, but just in case, I had this whole playlist that I would dance to and just make sure I was in the right headspace. And I put that on while like doing the dishes and stuff like that. And I had a playlist for during the labor, and I listened to that a lot, taking a foot bath and having my essential oils and stuff. So to really link the music and the scent and the relaxation and listening to the meditation, for example, as well. Yeah, so I did quite a lot, but it was like a fixed point in my day. And it was also a moment that my toddler wasn't around and I could really concentrate on this baby that was inside me, which was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any mental work that you found that you had to do? Were there any concerns that you had from your last labor, trying not to bring those in? I know that's like a common thing for moms. Anything that you found that worked really well, or that helped you work through that process to be excited and confident and empowered moving into the next pregnancy or into the next birth, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I did a lot of that work before I got pregnant, actually, because we struggled with secondary infertility for a while. I only got my cycles back after more than 2 years, and then it took 5 months, so that not that long. But in all, she was 2.5 by the time that we got pregnant. So I had quite a lot of time, and it felt like not getting my period was kind of connected to this fear of the birth. In a way that I wasn't ready to let go in a way. So I wrote a letter to the maternity ward telling them that how I had experienced their care and that I had read a lot of research that lying on your back when pushing is like the worst position that they could have put me in, and that I really struggled with that. I wrote my whole birth down for myself to work through it and talk to a friend about it, just each time digging a little deeper into what actually was the hardest bit for me. And by the time that I got pregnant, I actually felt pretty okay. I had promised myself that I wouldn't get pregnant again until I could think about birth without being scared. And that was true. So I wasn't scared about birth, but I was really preparing to the ninth. So in case I need to go to the hospital again, in case I have a retained placenta again. And that could have been like anxious, but it wasn't. It was just, okay, I want to have a plan A, B, C, and D so that whatever happens, I'm ready. And then I don't have to think about it at all in the moment. Yeah.
I like that
And
a
that
lot.
that worked really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any things that you did to prep your body coming up to labor time, or anything that your midwives had actually recommended that you do right before to get things moving and to go into labor? And do you guys have in the Netherlands, like, if you go over 42 weeks, for example, is that a big deal? Or like, would you have to transfer? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah. You can have a home birth Well, you can do anything, but it's not suggested you do a home birth if you are before 37 weeks or after 42. And it's up to the midwife, but they're not insured and stuff before or after that. So if I would have gone over 42, then I would have transferred to the hospital care. My first came at 41 weeks exactly. And with him, because we had this scare at 29 weeks, I was just praying that he would stay put until 37 so I could have my home birth and he would be like big enough. And then in the end, the labor started at 39.4, so I didn't really have to worry about it. But induction wasn't that common here. But it's starting to become more and more common. And also for things that like big baby and stuff like, yeah. I'm not liking the trend that much that I see here.
And then how about, I know it's such a bummer when you see that trend. It's so hard to watch it happen. How about when you were coming up to birthing time? Is it common for them to ask to do vaginal exams? Did you choose to have one if they do offer that? Or tell me a little about that. And then I guess we can kind of like get into the birth.
Yeah. I actually forgot to answer the other question about what I did to prepare my body. So with the first, because she went over a little bit, I had foot reflexology, which I didn't really believe in, but my sister had it with her second and she sweared by it. And the labor started a few days later and went really well the first bit. So I was thinking about doing that again. I didn't in the end, but I was eating dates pretty soon in the pregnancy, and the raspberry leaf tea, I started drinking it, but later than I had planned because of all the Braxton Hicks that I thought, I really don't want to ramp this up anymore. So I started at 36.5 weeks or something, but upped it quite quickly. And other than that, I don't think I really did anything. And the midwives don't really recommend, they don't really talk about preparing your body that way. But maybe because I already knew quite a lot, they said a few times, like, I don't have to tell you anything about this, do I? So maybe they would have otherwise. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get started and talk about the birth. So how far along were you? And when did that first contraction happen? All of that stuff.
Yeah. So I was 39 weeks and my husband had to go for an interview in a city that's an hour and a half away on Thursday. And on Friday, he had his last day at his last job, which was in Amsterdam, which is also like 2 hours away. So on Thursday and Friday, we were both just praying that this baby would stay put and that I wouldn't get any contractions. And I had a lot of Braxton Hicks both days. So it was really like in the mornings. So he was leaving at 6 and at 5 I said, I'm having quite a lot of contractions, but yeah, just go and I'll call you if you have to turn around. So that wasn't really comfortable those last days. And then they died out again, luckily. And then on Friday nights, so both these days were gone. And Friday night we were laying in bed and talking about the weekend, saying, we actually don't have anything planned this weekend. What should we do? Pretty relaxed. But then my baby had plans for us that weekend. So I couldn't get comfortable. I just couldn't get to sleep. Then I think I fell asleep around 1 o'clock and I woke up at 3:45. And I went to pee, but I just couldn't find any position anymore that was relaxing to me. I didn't really have contractions, but I just didn't feel like myself. And then I think like 4:10 or something, I had something that felt like a contraction, but it was just like all the Braxton Hicks. So I just thought that, I don't know. And then I had another one 7 minutes later, 10 minutes later. And then at 4:30, I had a true contraction that I immediately thought, this is what it felt like with my first. And this is a real one. And I timed it more or less, but it was already a minute. But then they came, I think like 8 or 10 minutes later, and we're only 30 seconds. So I thought, okay, maybe it's not going that fast. But then within a half an hour, they were every 4 or 5 minutes and they were 90 seconds long, all of them. So I woke my husband up at, a little to 5 and told him to get the birth pool ready because he had to, make room and blow it up and fill it up. and I was scared that he wouldn't make it. And he struggles to wake up. He has a bit of sleep inertia, it's called, I think. So he was moving stuff around, but he was like a zombie, and it was really going fast. So I put out my candle and the scents, and I put my playlist on these headphones. But it was every 2 to 3 minutes and 90 seconds long. So and so intense. So I couldn't even get my drink anymore or the food that I had planned. I couldn't do anything, and he was doing this pool. So I at one point said to him, you really need to take it up a notch because it's going quite quickly. And then he started really to hurry. And I already called my sister, who was going to be there in case my daughter woke up, so that she would have somebody there for her. And the midwife, I called them at 5:30 or something. So it had only been an hour, but I was obviously in transition. I was trembling. I was moaning through all of the contractions. I just landed on a birth ball, leaning over it, and I couldn't even find any other position because I didn't have enough time in between. My sister came within 15 to 20 minutes. She was there really quick. And I hadn't felt bad before that, but when she entered the room, because my husband was so busy with the birth pool, I was really alone. And then when she entered, she just tapped my back and sat down a few feet away. And that made such a difference, because I knew, okay, she's here. Somebody else is here. And for him as well, I think, because he didn't have to divide his attention anymore. So it was really nice. And then the midwife came around 6. And I was really in my own world. I could hear them, but I wasn't really paying any attention. But I could hear the voice of the midwife entering. And while I heard her coming in through the kitchen, I heard myself bearing down. And I thought, oh God, this is really... And I heard my sister say, yeah, I sounded like this when I was really almost pushing. And the midwife was laughing a bit and saying, yeah, I think she's almost there. But they didn't think I could hear them. So that was, yeah. And like in one fraction of my brain, I was thinking that was funny while bearing down. And yeah, then they came towards me, and the midwife said, do you want to get in the pool? And I said, it's not deep enough. And she said, no, it's not deep enough to give birth in yet, but it might help, and we'll get you out. I promise. If this baby starts to come out, we'll get you out in time. I said, okay, then I want to get in. So in between two of these massive contractions, I had like 30 seconds to walk to this pool, and then while I was getting in, I already had the next one. So I really plopped down in this tub. It was one with 2 handles. I landed in front of one of these like handles to grip, and I just gripped it with 2 hands, and I didn't move from that spot anymore afterwards. On my knees and really bearing down, and I think it was like maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes later, my waters broke. So that was why I was feeling this urge to push, probably because then the urge died away a bit, and I had a little bit of a break. I think maybe I didn't have a contraction for about 10 minutes. So that was my rest and be thankful phase. And then I was, at it again. And it really was every 2 to 3 minutes again, and really long, really intense contractions. But the water made the world of difference. It was just night and day, because when I was on the ball, I was swaying and moaning, and that helped a lot. But it was really, because it was so long, I halfway through, you start thinking, I can't. Then in the water, it was like the first bit of the contraction, and the last bit was just gone. It was only the peak that I had to deal with. And that was so manageable in like comparison to the ones before. That was, I loved the pool. Definitely recommend. And then, let's see. So 10 minutes of rest, and then I started having quite strong contractions again, and soon after I really felt the urge to push, and nobody had checked me, so I didn't answer that question. But we don't get checked like pre-labor at all, unless they thinking about induction, then I think they do. But otherwise, they don't really do any vaginal exams until you're in labor. And I had told my midwife that I didn't want any unless I requested them. So I didn't have anyone touch me at all, actually. My husband was stroking my back a bit, but for the rest of it, I was just in this pool in my own corner. And they were just quietly supporting me and saying I was doing a good job sometimes, but otherwise just leaving me be, which was what I wanted. I checked myself at one point and I could feel him, but it was like 2 knuckles deep. So I told the midwife between contractions that like I felt him 2 knuckles deep. She said, "You're doing wonderful, and yeah, just work him down. Just do what your body tells you to do." And I had planned on moving and changing positions, but I was stuck in that position. That was where I was going to have my baby. I knew I wasn't moving an inch. So I was, just bearing down quite a lot. And then I felt like this pressure. So I put my hand on my perineum just to alleviate the pressure a bit. And with one contraction, I felt his head just landing in my hand. And and then he went up again, of course. And so I grunted in between contractions. I just said head and I couldn't say any more. And they checked me, but it was between contractions. So she had a mirror and a lamp to try and see. And she said something like, "No, not yet, but you're really close. I can see it bulging." And I couldn't explain that I had already felt him. And then the next contraction, his head came out like halfway, like up to his brows, somewhere around that. And I was too far gone to actually say anything, so nobody noticed. I was just, when the contraction died down, he stayed there, and I was just, stroking his head and just waiting with him for the next one and just having a moment. And that was really, really beautiful, because when my daughter was crowning, it was so painful and all-encompassing, and I was just only wanting to get her out. And it was like this was my little gift to get over that part of her birth, because this was, of course it was like you're stretched beyond capacity, so it felt really intense, but it did feel really, I was just very calm and loving, and it was really beautiful. And then the next contraction came, and his head came out and his shoulders, and he turned, and I, like on instinct, started to turn myself to my bottom so that I could birth him and catch him. And everybody around me actually just caught on what was happening because I started to move. So I remember the midwife saying something like, "Oh, your baby, you can get him if you want." But he wasn't entirely out, so he was out with his chest, but somehow he got stuck with his bottom, and my contraction died down again. So everybody always says like the body just slithered out, and I was thinking this should, like, I should be able to get him, so I was trying to get him under his arms, and he really was a little bit stuck, so I had to do a little push after the contraction to get him out. And then he was in the water looking up at us, like eyes open, really calm. Just I slowly brought him up, and it took him a little time to land, to realize that he was born, I think. So he was just looking at me, but not crying and not breathing. And I wasn't really worried, but I was thinking, okay, I've heard about this and blowing in their face can help. So I started like blowing a little bit and talking to him and just brushing his cheek with my hand. And then within the minute that you get, he did this little wail, but it was like tiny. And then he breathed, and he closed his eyes and just snuggled into my chest. Like, okay, this is fine. I'm fine now. And afterwards, my midwife, I heard he had an APGAR score of 9 immediately. So she wasn't worried at all. She hadn't touched any of us by that point. She just, watched. It was exactly what I wanted of her. Yeah. Yeah.
What a beautiful birth. I loved every minute of that. I love how you described
Of
it
the
too.
2.5 hours, not even.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Because he was born at 10 to 7. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really fast and furious. Yeah.
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 Okay, to go back, I think my favorite part, well, you just described it so beautifully. Like I felt like I was there with you and I could see and feel was happening. But I think it's so neat. Like you explained, like having your hand on your perineum and feeling his head and like having that connection and being able to like stroke his cute little head while he's like kind of like, hey, mommy's here. Like we're doing fine. You're fine. And then it also being
Mm-hmm.
this like healing thing from your past, you know, that it, which I've said so many
Yeah.
times and we know is true. Like each birth can be so healing as you go, especially when you've had a rough one. So I love that you
Mm-hmm.
shared that. I am curious because it was so fast and furious, and the way that you explain it is so calm. Um, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering what it was like for you. Like, what were those contractions like? You did explain that they got close together very
Yeah.
quickly, but can you explain what they felt like, where you felt them, kind of
Yeah.
what the intensity was like, and then anything that you did to work through them, both physically and any conversations or meditations or anything that was happening in your mind too.
Yeah. Where did I feel that? I felt them mostly in my tummy, but like it felt like they went all over from there. Like it was all encompassing. Like my whole body was contracting, which was what I had with her as well. So that felt familiar in a way. And I had one like the what helped most was the when I was on the birth ball, it was the swaying like back and forth and moaning, like making sounds, vocalizing was the biggest part throughout the whole birth. And I didn't do that much with her, but I think it was because I was like I did that at home, I think, but in the hospital I just
Mm.
closed up. I wasn't myself, wasn't doing what I needed to do. I just lost all connection to my body, and now I could just feel that what helped, and that was moving a bit and moaning through them, and the water was amazing. I listened to my playlist, the birth playlist, because I didn't get my early labor part, of course. So I listened to the birth playlist on my headphones when I was on the leaning on the birth ball, and then when they brought me to the pool, I wanted to say to my husband to put the music on the speaker on the television, but I didn't manage before the next contraction hit, and then I didn't think of it until it was too late to actually speak. So I didn't have my music playing, which that's like one of the only things that I would change about this whole birth. And my midwife said, I was thinking about that because I really expected you to have music playing and then it was silent, but I thought maybe that was what you wanted and I didn't want to disturb you by asking. So, I didn't have the music anymore, but I apparently didn't need it because with the moaning, I was okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's all of what I did to help. Yeah. Oh, and the internal dialogue there was one moment that was really because I was leaning on this birth ball. My husband was still working to get the pool up. It wasn't even filling yet, and it was just before my sister arrived, I think. And I had this one moment of, oh my God, this is how can I already there's no time to breathe. How can it already be this hard and this? I'm not going to be able to manage. And then the thought right after was, okay, so then that means that this is transition because you know what this feels like and you know when you felt it. So if it's this fast, if it's this intense, then it's just fast and you're already at that point. And that was enough for me to relax into it and just let these contractions take over my body because that really was how it felt. It wasn't as if with pushing, it wasn't as if my body was doing it. I really had to make an effort to push, but it was the only way to alleviate the pressure to push. So it did feel inevitable, but it didn't feel like you hear people say sometimes like my body was just doing it. It wasn't like that for me. I really did have to push, but it was the only way to manage. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That's it's so interesting sitting and listening to how each birth is so different and how each mom works
Hmm.
through things. It's beautiful. Okay, before we jump off, I love to end with the advice for moms and advice for dads. And then I'm going to keep you on for just a couple more minutes for my essential birth mom so I can ask you just a couple more questions about postpartum and breastfeeding and all of that. So, what
Yeah,
is your best
that's good.
advice for moms, best advice for dads?
For moms, really to connect to your body throughout the pregnancy, because I think with my first one, I did read and listen, but I wasn't, and I was really in touch with her, but I wasn't really in touch with my body and trusting my body. And I think I needed that first birth to find my autonomy and my trust that I could do this, that it was mine to do. And this time I was really conscious of that and of connecting with my body and trying to get to know it. So I guess that would be my biggest point of advice. And for partners, I think it can look so different, because when we were preparing, I found like counter pressure, for example, really helpful. And I was telling him, like, you have to try this during the birth. But then in the end, he didn't, and I didn't ask him to. I didn't want to be touched. I just wanted to do it myself. So my sister stroked my back for a few minutes when I was still leaning over the bowl. And then my husband stroked me when I was in the pool. And I think my sister did as well at one point, stroked my arm. But that was what I needed. I just needed to know that they were there. And they sometimes gave some compliments. That was it. That was all you had to do. And I think just following along with what the birthing person needs. So if that's a lot of involvement, then give that. But if it's this, then that's fine as well. You can trust that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your birth story and for the way that you told it. I know it's going to serve a lot of women, so I appreciate that.
I forgot one thing that might be, I don't know if people who want to home birth are worried about having a child at home already. So I don't know if it would help to tell how we worked, to prepare our daughter in case she would see it.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's great.
Because, she really wanted to be there. So we had promised to wake her if she was asleep. And she watched birthing videos with me. And she read a book about birth, really explicit photos with it as well. And she still wants to read that before going to bed sometimes, like a year later almost. And in the end, because it was so intense and I was moaning and just making a lot of sound, I told my husband, when I was just in the pool, I said, I don't think we should wake her. I don't think she'll be okay watching this, because she's quite sensitive. And then everybody in the room said, then don't. Just really clear answer for me, because I was, of course, a bit conflicted. And that was enough for me to be okay with that. And then in the end, we woke her up when her brother was like a few minutes old. We didn't know the gender, but she had been saying from the beginning, like from 12 weeks on, that she was going to get a brother. And a few weeks before he was born, she chose the name, which was a different one than we were leaning to. But she was so adamant that this was her brother and that was his name, that in the end we just thought, well, apparently she knows, so let's go with it. So when he was born, we brought her down, and she, when she looked and said, like I said, see, it's a brother, you were right. She just said, she looked at me like, yeah, duh, I knew already. And she got in the pool with us, because she really wanted to, and just stroked him a bit. And she said, hi, I'm your big sister. We already knew each other. And it was such a magical moment. So even when because I did have an ambulance ride to the hospital to get the retained placenta out again in the end, but it wasn't traumatizing for me, and it wasn't for her either. She saw a bit of blood, but we had talked about how that's part of birth. And she did wonderfully, and she was really happy to have been there for, the directly after birth bit. Yeah.
What a neat story. That's so cool. Definitely connected. Well, thank you. Thank you again for everything. I really appreciate it. Okay,
Yeah,
now.
you're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just wanted to say you're welcome. It's joy to be on, because I've listened to so many birth stories. It's fun to add mine.
Yeah, I love every single one. There has not been one. Like, I could sit here and listen to birth stories all day. So I love it. Okay, let's dive into just a little bit of the background stuff here. Okay, some questions that I would like to ask. One of them was, what's your favorite podcast topic for preparation, and which ones did you have your birth partner listen to? Because I think that'll help moms as they're preparing. Those were the ones that I can send my husband to or whatever. What was that like?
Ooh, I listened to so many. Listening to birth stories was my main, and just empowering natural birth stories and stories about birth pools, because anything that matched up with what I hoped for in my birth, I listened to. And I just listened while like doing the dishes and on my bike, and listened to a lot of birth stories to try and retrain my brain to see it as something natural and to hear all the different ways that it could go and that all those different ways can work out. That really helped me because, yeah, you hear about like anything that can happen and how different all these births are. And that really gave me a lot of confidence. So to trust what was happening. Yeah. And my husband, yeah, he didn't really want to listen to birth stories. It felt too personal to him or something. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but he really didn't like that. So I told him when I found one that was like close to my dream birth, I told him, okay, sorry, but you have to listen to this one, and especially the role the partner plays in this one. That's what I would like you to do. And he listened to that one birth story, and then the birth course parts that I thought would be beneficial for him.
Awesome. Were there some favorite tools or coping mechanisms that you used to work through labor? Like specific things that you were saying in your head, prayers that you were offering, or different movements that you used?
I had prepared a lot of different movements that I wanted to try, but in the end I was leaning over this birth ball and just swaying my bum from side to side, which felt really good, just getting some movement and also, having gravity work for me. With my daughter, I did kind of the same thing looking back because I was on a large chair and I was leaning over the side and swaying as well. So it was like the exact same position that I just gravitated to again. Only with the ball, I had more movement and more room. It felt better. And then in the bathtub, it was the same, just on my knees and swaying. But I was lucky that I was only 2.5 hours because in the end, I wouldn't have been able to hold that position. Of course, on your knees, you can't do that for 20 hours. So I don't know. I had a plan to try and sway and make like 8 circle my hips. Yeah, I don't just trying to move and listen to my body was the idea, and I did that, but it was only one one way in the end. Yeah.
And then how about
I don't
pushing?
know if I answered the whole question. Oh,
No, that's great. That's great. How about pushing? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Maybe even if there were any, because you did mention that you didn't have that overwhelming urge, which I think is really great for you to share. And so other women hear that as well. But with that, were there like breathing techniques that you used, or you just kind of followed the motions of your body? Were you holding your breath and pushing really hard? Were you allowing your breath out as you were pushing? What was that like?
Oh, I really have to think about it because I really didn't think about what I was doing, but I was vocalizing, so I was letting the breath out that way. I was just making like a oh sound like all the time and just doing that over and over again during contractions. And that really helped me. And there was one point that I heard myself going like up in a higher pitch and I felt myself tensing up. And I remembered from all these stories that, okay, make it low again. And that worked like immediately. It was really, that worked like magic. And in between contractions, I did a really conscious breath that I had been doing with the meditation. So in through the nose and then longer exhale through the mouth. I just kept doing that so that I stayed in the flow. And because I only had a little time between contractions, I didn't have enough to actually do anything else. I was just breathing and recuperating and then going again. Yeah. And with the pushing, I was more like grunting. So I was straining, bearing down, and I was holding my breath, I think, because, I can't imagine how I would do that otherwise. But it was not a conscious decision. Like in the hospital, they were coaching me and saying, oh, that many seconds, have a breath and then push. And I really didn't like that. It didn't feel natural, didn't feel like it helped me in any way. I lost all connection and couldn't actually feel my pelvic area at all. Like I felt the pressure and maybe pain, but no, like it wasn't a part of me. And this time it was like the opposite. It just felt very natural to bear down that way. And I was gripping this hand rail, and when I was pushing, I really gripped that very hard. So that was where I put the pressure to, I think. Yeah.
And then how about postpartum? Did you guys prepare for any way, or I guess you've had a baby before, but did you do anything to prepare for that immediate postpartum and kind of right after baby was born? What was that like for you?
Well, maybe first it's good to know that in the Netherlands, postpartum looks really different from the rest of the world. So I think like New Zealand is the only other one where we have maternity care come to your house after you've given birth for 8 days. So the first day they come for like 6 hours or even longer. And then the last day it's only like 2 hours. So they kind of scale it down, but they're there to assist you in any way. So they help you take care of the baby. They help you with breastfeeding if you want to, help you with how you bathe your baby. And especially with the first one, that's really like a gift. It's an enormous gift to just take the pressure off and have somebody who knows about this to help you, and you can ask questions. And they have this checklist. They have to talk about certain things like SIDS risks and all of that, but they are mainly just there to help you, which is very special. And I'm very grateful that I live in a country that offers that support. And it's mainly funded by the government as well. You pay like a small fee per hour to get it. Yeah. And I
That's
think
really
even
neat.
that small fee, probably there are ways to, if you don't have enough money for that, I think there are ways to get that as well.
That's really neat. Yeah, I think if every woman could have that, she'd have a much better start to motherhood in general. So
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah, it's a big difference. And then other than that, because that's like the biggest support in those first few days, we had a meal train arranged. So part of the gifts, we didn't really want any gifts from people visiting. We asked them to bring us food, and I have kids with allergies, so we were suspecting this one would have allergies as well. So I had a book of recipes that they could choose from. But in the end, that's not really common here in the Netherlands. So only a few people did that. But I just wanted to raise awareness for it as well, because I think that would be the biggest help for me as a new mom. Thinking about groceries and cooking was the one thing too much in a day. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything with breastfeeding? Did that go well for you? Did you have any challenges? Any advice for new moms?
Breastfeeding is because of the allergies of my eldest. I breastfed her. She wanted to feed like every 3 hours, day and night, for more than a year, and then we kept breastfeeding. So she even nurses like once in a while now when she's 4. So I breastfed her dry through pregnancy. And then when he was born, I tandem nursed, but she doesn't drink much. It's just more for, reassurance sometimes. But I had that in my pocket. Like, I know this works, and this baby will join, and he can drink first, because I really want to know that he gets enough, of course. But especially in the beginning, when the milk came in, that was such a help that she could just take the pressure off sometimes. So I could, I actually liked that experience, even though it was hard for her to share at first, of course. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute.
And he does have a lip and a tongue tie a little bit, but not bad enough that we wanted to do anything about it. So we did struggle a little bit with that, but it was manageable. And because I knew that I knew what I had to do, I had the confidence to actually work through it. It didn't really fluster me. But I know if he had been my first, that would have been really different. So I had a lactation consultant come to look at the tongue tie, but I wasn't really worried. And I think if that would have been my first baby, I would have had her come a few times to actually make sure that I was doing it right.
Yeah, the second time's always a little bit easier. Well, usually, at least where you're like, I've done this before, so I know what it should be like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
at least the confidence is bigger. Yeah.
definitely. How about parenting? So you have two, and you got to introduce a new one. So what was it like adjusting to one or adjusting to two for you guys? And were there any conversations or expectations between you and your husband that you guys talked about or dealt with?
When our eldest was born, it was during the pandemic, the first year of it. So we were alone, the three of us, for like most of that year. So that was really different. And in a way, it was a blessing and a curse in one, because we got to spend a lot of time with her. And I think she really thrived on all that attention. And for her, it is quite difficult to share the attention with her brother. So even though she loves him a lot, she can also struggle sometimes with, she just has some difficulties herself and some challenges. And if she's feeling stressed, then she can try and take it out on him. So that's been like our biggest challenge in going from 1 to 2, that our first one needs quite a lot of care. And our second one, he's really quite easy in a lot of things. So I the only thing I really try to do is make sure that he receives enough attention as well. So I was really intentional about, for example, putting him skin to skin. If she was at her grandmother's house or something, so she wasn't there, then I would take him skin to skin and just cuddle on the couch instead of doing the dishes, so that he would have this one-on-one time as well, because for him it's just quite rare to have my whole attention. So that was the biggest point, was trying to give them both what they need. And sometimes that's a challenge.
Yeah. All right. Last question for you. And this one kind of comes from some recent conversation that we've had in the Facebook group. Somebody had shared, she's like, is it just me? Like, I feel so overwhelmed by the time Dad gets home. Like, I want to give him my attention and my love and all this. And I just feel like there's just so much going on with all the little ones at home. So do you have any advice that you would like to give, or anything you'd like to say to moms who are feeling that way, where they're like, I'm feeling so overwhelmed and spent and tired? What would you say to them?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer. I'm afraid. We do, like, because we both work and we both have one day at home with the kids. So we try to do it like equal, and we try to cover for each other. So if I come home and I can see that he's had a tough day with the kids, he's really tired, then I just take the kids from him, no questions asked, and the other way around as well. But we struggle to make time for each other. So the best advice I can give right now is what's helping us right now is just being open and honest. Like I would love to have more time one-on-one with you, and just telling him that, or telling him I really appreciate it that you like put the candles out and try to make some time for us, even though the baby came and needed another feed. Just trying to see each other, and also reminding each other that it's temporary. Like this time with small children needing so much of you, it is in the end temporary. And if I look at my eldest, who's now 4, it's such a big difference with a year ago, and it's night and day compared to 2 years ago. How much more, I don't know, self-confident she is, and can do stuff for herself and tell us what she's feeling and thinking. And once you get to that point, it really does become a little easier to make some time for each other. So I know with this one, it'll be the same. It's just the hard years now.
Yeah, there will be. And it's so crazy because all of a sudden you're out of it and you don't realize it. And I mean, because at least for me, I was like, oh, it's so nice. I can run to the library really quick, or run to the store for this and that. And anyways, you like have this moment, or at least I did. And my husband and I were laying in bed and we're like, what happened? Like, they're not little anymore.
When?
And it's over. Yeah. So, I mean, it's so cliche, but like it's over in a blink of an eye. And so, I mean, you're in it, you're in the thick of it. And you moms that are listening, it's the same thing. You're in the thick of it right now. But grab all the joy you can from it, because it is over so quickly and you are in the next phase. So yeah, that's just so true. But thank you. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you. I enjoyed your birth story. I enjoy all your wisdom mothering. I enjoyed learning about, things that are a little bit different and the same in the Netherlands. But you are an incredible woman, and I greatly, greatly appreciate your time today. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a joy.
If you loved what you heard today, the very best way to support this podcast and help other moms to find it is to leave a quick review. I read one at the beginning of the episodes, and I would love for yours to be next. And if you're ready for even more pregnancy, birth, and postpartum goodness, come join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I will hold your hand and walk you through pregnancy and birth step by step so you're totally prepared for a birth you'll love. See you next week.